Welcome to Connecting Tech. This channel is all about learning new skills by connecting it to pre-existing knowledge. In this series, we're going to learn the basics of Adobe Premiere from the perspective of someone who already knows how to use iMovie. I know what you're thinking. Why do this? iMovie, it's super simple, it's super basic. You can't even compare it to something that is used in the industry by professionals like Adobe Premiere. I learned how to edit on a little program called Windows Movie Maker. Now, at the time, it looked a little bit like this. Not so great. You can only make so many things with it. It wasn't until I got to college that I had to learn how to use Avid Media Composer. Now, Avid Media Composer, that is a dense software to use. And I had a hard time getting into it because I couldn't get my bearings. The first class I had on it was 50 minutes on how to make a project. I didn't even know what a project was. But as soon as we got in there and we got editing, I started making all these connections. I said, oh, this is just like Movie Maker here, or oh, Movie Maker couldn't do this, but Avid can do this, and this is great. And I started learning so much faster, and then soon enough, I was an expert. So for this series, we're gonna start with iMovie. Let's face it, it's the most accessible editing software on the market right now. You can get it on your phones for free. It's on your computer, it's everywhere, it's easy to pick up and get started just, connecting shots together and making things. And then we're gonna jump to what I think is kind of the perfect balance between industry standard and something that is relatively approachable, and that's Adobe Premiere. This isn't gonna be a comprehensive tutorial. The whole point of this series is to get you editing, get you messing around in Premiere, and so you can discover its capabilities on your own. So in this episode, we're going to learn how to make a project and how to get your footage into that project. So let's start with making a project. On iMovie, you've got three options, and that's it. You can make a magic movie or a storyboard. These are kind of your pre-generated movie things, or you can just create a movie. You click the Create a Movie button, and it jumps you straight to your camera roll where you can just pull in all the media that you want. Now on Premiere, it looks a little bit more complicated, but it's pretty straightforward. You launch the application and you just hit New Project in the top left, big blue button. Okay, it's pretty easy to get overwhelmed with this next page. It looks like that you have a million options, but it's pretty straightforward if you remember this key fact. Your Premiere project is similar to a Word document or a PowerPoint document or any sort of file on your computer. When you make the project, that's where all of your editing is going to live. If you double click the file on your desktop, it's going to open up the project similar to if you double clicked a Word document. So you're going to want to know two things. What are you going to name your project up here? And where is that going to live, the project location? If you don't know where it's going to go or where it's going to live, a safe bet is to just put it in documents like a Word document. All of the other stuff on this page doesn't matter. You might think that you need to add your video files now by using Premiere's specific browser that they've got here. Don't worry about it. There's an easier way to add your footage. There's an easier way to add your music. All of that can come later as soon as you make your project. So go ahead and just hit Create. Now, before we look at what an Adobe Premiere project looks like, let's think back to iMovie for a second. Now in iMovie, when you make a project, immediately you're given the option, what footage do you want in there? You can select all the footage, all the music, all the pictures that you want, and it'll just spit that onto, a timeline for you to watch. It's already on there, all of it's together. And at any point, you can press the plus button in the corner and it will pull open your camera roll and give you even more options if you want to add or remove footage. But everything lives on the timeline. There's no staging area. You pull it from your camera roll and it's straight on the timeline. Not great. Part of what makes Premiere a software that anyone can use is the fact that there are almost an infinite amount of ways for you to accomplish the same task. This is in terms of editing, this is in terms of effects, titles, all of that. The same goes for importing your footage. Now, for the sake of this tutorial, rather than show you all 60,000 ways to import media in Premiere, I'm gonna show you the easiest way to do it, in my opinion. So, when you get into your project, it's going to look a little bit like this. You're going to have about 4 windows that all kind of do different things. Essentially, each window is a different tab that you can have a number of different things in. For the sake of this tutorial, we're going to stay in this default view because you're pretty much going to have everything you need to get started right now. Down here on the bottom left, you will have the Project tab. This will be noted by the fact that it says project : and then the name of your project. Once you've found this window, open up your computer's file browser and navigate to wherever the footage lives. All the video files, all the pictures, whatever you want to be in your editing project, find that, select it, and drag it straight into this window. You'll hit a quick loading screen and then boom, it's all right there. What makes this so much better than iMovie is your footage can be in the project without having to live directly on the timeline. So if you're editing something that is super complex, that has a ton of footage involved, or you might not end up using everything, you have a sort of staging area before you even start making edits. You can name your footage, you can organize it into folders, all of that can happen right here before you even start editing. So it's a great way to keep organized, which is something that you just can't even do in iMovie. So you've got a project set up, you've got your footage in here, you're basically ready to start editing. So in the next episode, we're going to get your footage onto the timeline and start exploring some of the tools that you can use to manipulate your media. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully that by comparing the shortcomings of iMovie with what Premiere can do, you learned something. And if you want to learn more, tune into episode 2, which is coming out quite soon. So see you next time.